Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Joining me here on the day after the 31-19 SEC East clinching win for the Gators, 31-19 victory over the Tennessee Volunteers. Joining me is Nick De La Torre from the newly announced Gators Territory for Nick. So, Nick, I won't bury the lead a little bit. If people aren't on Twitter, they may not have seen your announcement yesterday, but go ahead and let our Gators Breakdown listeners know what's new on the front for you.
I have a shorter lower third than you. That's what I have now with the Twitter change and then the new company. Yeah, after 8 years of Gator Country, moved over to Rivals and excited to join Corey Bender and the team he's got over there. And the only thing that changes for anyone that follows me is the links take you somewhere else. You know, it's still the same me and same sarcasm and all that stuff. So just links take you somewhere else now. And if you want to interact on the message board, it's a different message board.
There we go. So good stuff there. Corey, those guys there do a great job. So looking forward to your continued content, continued Gator content there with kind of the shuffling of Gator media right now. So yeah, it's some good stuff out there happening there for everybody who follows all the beat writers, all the Gator coverage out there. But Nick, on Sunday here on Gators Breakdown, and as we look back at this Florida victory over Tennessee, and we'll get into it. Nick, another slow start for the Gators. We're going to keep using ho-hum, I guess, because we know Dan Mullen likes the term. We'll use it a little bit there, but we'll get into it. We'll get into it, of course, like we do every Sunday. But before we do, remember, you can find Gators Breakdown on news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown. You'll find all the Gators Breakdown episodes there, as well as News4Jax coverage of the Gators. Please share, rate, and review the show on YouTube. Hit that like button right now. Hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. Or if you just want the audio version, to-go version, if you're on the go, check us out on your favorite podcast platform and follow Gators Breakdown on social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook at Gators Breakdown. So, Nick, definitely an overall inconsistent performance, much like we've seen the last couple of weeks since the Georgia game, since the Arkansas game. Those back-to-back performances there where the offense was just high-flying all over the field. You can point to some good things. You can point to some bad things. But we're having this discussion after Florida gets their 8th win of the season, the win that gives them the SEC East for the first time since 2016. Look, viewpoints, perspective is going to be different for everybody out there, every fan, every media member. Everybody's going to choose to look at this one way or another. But in the grand scheme of things, overall, not looking at the game itself, just kind of adding everything up. Big accomplishment for the Gators to win the East right now.
I saw you on Twitter say that you were going to enjoy it. Are you enjoying it?
I'm enjoying it. I am. I mean, I'm having some back and forth with some fans in good hearted, but I'm enjoying it. I am. I'm glad. Look. First of all, your SEC East champs, Georgia's not. That's the best part about it.
No, I think the best part about it is that you're not hanging up Jim McElwain SEC East champion banners in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. What a loser thing to do. And I love Dan Mullen's mentality. He was like, the only reason our goal every year is to win the East is because that's what we can control. We can't control winning the SEC championship game without winning the East, because you're not going to get there without winning the East. He goes, now that we've secured that first goal, now we're on to the next one. So, yeah, there's no banners going up, not happy. Maybe I would expect Dan Mullen and his coaching staff, we're at 2:30 right now on Sunday. They've already ceased the celebration and have started, getting ready for LSU. And if not only LSU, getting ready for Alabama as well.
Yeah, and part of it's because, look, that was not only for Florida. Look, Florida expects it anyway, but you got realistic expectations out there. First of all, this was the year when Dan Mullen was hired, everybody was kind of pointing to. This was the year before the season started, right before the season, when preseason polls were coming out and SEC media members' predictions. This was the year Florida was predicted to go out there and finally win the East over Georgia with, first time Dan Mullen is supposed to do it here as Gators head coach, and you did it. So, expectations have a lot to do with it, and they lived up to the expectation.
No, just lucky that JT Daniels wasn't playing. I think that's probably the only reason Florida's even getting a chance to get to play against Alabama. Or if Newman would have stayed, probably a whole different story. Kyle Trask would be in the Heisman race, that's for sure. They were already given one of the two Georgia quarterbacks the Heisman.
Nick, for me, you may have to explain you were joking there a little bit because people may
joking. Yeah, joking. Sorry. No, there it is. New UGA homer, Nick Torre. No, but I think there's I can see both perspectives. One, you should be happy because this is the trajectory of the program. But I remember when Jim McElwain went his first year, and it was my thought process was, and I wrote, "Hey, you're here early. You shouldn't be here yet." And then when Florida lost to Alabama in the SEC championship that year, I thought, okay, well, now you know how far away you are. And then when they got railroaded the next year, it was, okay, well, this is not going in the right direction. But like you just said, I think this is where you expected to be in year 3 under Dan Mullen. This is where you expected to be before the season. I picked Florida to win the East. I can't remember if the media did because it was a weird.
They did. I did see it. Somebody posted it yesterday, but Florida was picked.
Yeah, that was part of my vote. But we're not usually right. But yeah, this is where you should be. And if I'm a fan, listen, as a writer, I look at Alabama and I'm thinking hey, that's the boogeyman that you were worried about under the bed when you were growing up. They are big and they are scary. But as a fan, you don't have to draw up X's nose. You don't have to game plan. You don't have to line up against Devonta Smith. Just enjoy it and celebrate it. Worry about Alabama, on the 19th and leave the worrying until then up to Dan Mullen and his coaching staff. But right now, your SEC East champions, like you said, Georgia's not. Tennessee might be hiring a new coach. South Carolina is hiring a new coach. FSU is a dumpster fire. There's a lot of worse places you could be as a fan right now than in Gainesville, Florida.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll get into how Florida got there and captured the SEC East over Tennessee. And Nick, we'll start at the most important position on the field and probably the storyline of the game. Either way, Kyle Trask, with no help from the running game, of course, got Kyle Trask another big stat game. Yes, he missed some reads. Yes, he missed some throws, looked uncomfortable at times, still had a really, really good day, making throws into tight windows, displaying touch and zip when needed for the most part. Nick, he accounted for 433 yards of the Gators' 452 total yards. There, add 4 touchdowns to that with 8 different players getting receptions. Look, teams are playing to stop this passing game, making Trask play patient, pick them apart, dropping guys into coverage. You can tell it's having an effect, but not to the point where this offense still isn't putting up numbers. Numbers aren't necessarily translating to as many points right now, but Trask is putting this team in position still.
Yeah, I mean, still incredibly because Florida, it's not that they – I mean, I want to say it's not – I was going to say it's not that they couldn't run against, against Tennessee, but they didn't try. But, no, they also couldn't. I mean, you look at Dameon Pierce, 5 carries for 5 yards. Naquan Wright, 4 for 2. He also put it on the ground, if I'm remembering correctly. I think Florida got it, but he put it on the ground. And Malik Davis, 2 attempts for no yards. So you're running backs there.
His knee was down on the play.
The knee was down. That's what it is. So, I mean, 11 carries, 7 yards from your running backs. You get a Tony 7-yard carry and a Copeland 17-yard rush on the end around. But, yeah, you couldn't run the ball against Tennessee, and it didn't matter. Kyle Trask having a prolific day. And I think what happened, I mean, you get a Tennessee player, I can't remember which one it was, coming out and saying they're padding Kyle's stats. And I'm like, you don't follow Gator Twitter very much. But no, it's
Henry
it's,
to O.
It should have been a credit to Tennessee. Florida, they shut down the run. They did not allow Florida to run the ball. If you didn't want them to throw the ball,
while playing the pass.
If you didn't want them to throw the ball, you should cover the middle of the field, which was wide open all day long. It's Dan Mullen's going to find. Listen, if Alabama comes out and can't stop Florida's run for whatever reason, Dan will run it 60 times against Alabama if it's working. And the pass was working because Tennessee couldn't cover Florida. And for me, if you have a really, really good passing game, you're wasting plays when you're not using that passing game.
Yeah, completely agree. And just kind of the theme for me, the theme for this offense too. Look, Pitts had 2 targets in the first quarter before catching his first pass in the second quarter. He had 2 catches at halftime and then finished the game with 7 catches for 128 yards. No touchdowns in this game, but was still making a difference. Had that 42-yard catch and run. Kadarius Toney showed up early and often. 8 catches, 108 yards and a touchdown. 6 catches for him in the first half. Toney and Pitts basically switched halves of production, and that's the beauty of this offense, Nick. Just kind of, look, I'm sure Tennessee made adjustments, to take away Toney at halftime since he had a great first half, but only for Pitts to go off in the second half. Grimes added 6 catches for 2 touchdowns, while Copeland added 3 catches for a beautiful throw by Trask for another touchdown in the backcourt of that end zone. Laser throw there by Trask. Copeland, could have had one more catch and touchdown if Grimes isn't still the one touchdown from him. There were some drops along the way, but overall, a really nice day for the main core wide receivers there.
I mean, that's the beauty of this Florida offense. You can say, hey, we're going to take away Kyle Pitts. And listen, Georgia took away Kyle Pitts for 2 games with a targeting hit, and it didn't matter. You just found other weapons, and you take away Kyle Pitts and bracket him or double team him. Now Kadarius Toney's in one-on-one. Okay, well, let's just shade a shade of safety over towards Kyle, not double him, and then we have linebacker and a nickelback looking at Toney. And okay, now Trayvon Grimes is going to catch passes. There's just so many weapons. It's the old saying, probably tired saying, pick your poison, but there's just too many guys on Florida's offense right now, and the motor that keeps it all going is Kyle Trask, because one of the big knocks I had on Felipe Franks was just trying to win the game on his own and trying to do too much. And you said it earlier, Dave, Trask is not afraid. He'll check down and check down and check down. If you're going to give me 7 yards on a check down to the running back, I'll take it. And sooner or later, we're going to be across the 50 and we're going to be getting close. He doesn't force things. Forced one to Pitts in triple coverage. Can't blame him. I'd do the same. But for the most part, he makes the right decisions, and that's what makes Florida dangerous. Because, yes, you could have all the weapons in the world, but if you're not going to use it and take what the defense gives you, you're going to start turning the ball over, and you're not going to have the kind of offense that we're seeing from Florida right now.
Yeah, Nick, I want to go hit the run game again. Just kind of repeat a lot of what you said. Copeland had the longest run of the day, 17 yards. Toney the next longest with a 7-yard run. Both of those guys would 1 carry apiece there. Damian Pierce.
No explosives for you this week, Dave.
No explosives. Not even close, Nick. Not even close. Damian Pierce, 5 carries, 5 yards with a long of 4 yards. Right, 4 carries and 2 yards. Longest run of 2. Malik Davis, 2 carries, 0 yards with a long of 2. That's putrid. There's no push up front. This run game is. Here's the thing that I
can't tell if you're actually enjoying this. I think you're actually enjoying the no explosives.
What did I say? Overall, I'm happy. I'm looking at this particular game and kind of some trends here. But Nick, that's kind of what it is. This run game's taking steps back. Since the Georgia game and the Arkansas game, the last few weeks, this one being a huge step back. And, it didn't matter if they ran left. It didn't matter if they ran right. Mm-hmm. Gators couldn't run. You saw wide receivers get carries and the screen game used more. To me, looking a lot like last season. Hey, look, run game's not working. I think we saw the screen pass probably a bit more in this game than we have in other games of the season, just to make up for a lack of traditional run game, much like we did see, like I said, like we saw last year a bit. But it is worrisome that I think, as I said, I credit the staff, and I was having a conversation on Twitter today. I do credit the staff for not being so stubborn to where they just kept running the ball.
Right.
Look, okay. And I'm going to go to some play selection here, looking back at the game too. But Florida's and the staff knew their best path to scoring points was passing the ball. Yes, there were a couple of instances where they ran back-to-back plays and it put Florida in some third down situations that they still converted in a way. But we had so much high hopes for this run game coming into the season. They were taking steps. Had a really, I thought, pretty good performance versus Georgia and Arkansas. Then the last 3 games against teams who have dropped a lot of guys into coverage, and you still can't run the ball.
Yeah, that's to me. Obviously, there's way more technical stuff that goes into it, but to me, running the ball is just, hey, beat the guy in front of you. There's a lot, there's a lot of footwork and finesse that can come into pass blocking, and you should take pride in it too. But we used to ask, I remember we asked all the offensive linemen when it was like the old school Florida LSU games, like, hey, or the old school Florida Georgia games, and hey, the team that runs the ball best is going to win. Do you love to hear that as an offensive lineman? They go, yeah, pass blocking's cool, but if you're just telling me to move somebody, to move another human being backwards, like that's what gets me up in the morning. And I just I'm not seeing that from Florida. And you expect to see it from a guy like Stone. Stone Forsett had a great year by all accounts and probably helping himself out in terms of getting drafted. Need to see more from everyone across the line, from Stone all the way. Garage and Heggie and Reese and Gene DeLance. I'm sure we'll be talking about him soon. But yeah, there's just, and it's probably why I asked Dan Mullen about it yesterday, because I thought the last 3 games for you, really, you could be using to try and get different combinations of offensive linemen and to try and figure out something. But Dan Mullen made it clear, this is the offensive line. And we're not privy to watching practice. So, if this is the best 5 they have and you trust Dan Mullen as a football coach, that's what he's saying. This is the best 5 they have, and this is the best options they have. But like you said, I think that there has been regression in the running game towards, what we're seeing, what we saw last year, which is why Michael Pirine was so important, because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So, yeah, listen, if Florida's passing game can continue to be this prolific, just use a short, intermediate screen passing attack as your running attack. Because if you're going to get 11 yards from your running backs a game, just do something else. Don't bang your head against the wall trying to force it.
Yeah, there you go. I just don't want to force it. My whole thing's kind of just been the theme of the running game for me this whole season is just be able to run it when you need to run it. Don't necessarily make it the focus of the offense, but when it's 3rd and 2, there needs to be a belief you can go out there and pick up 3rd and 2 on the ground. And
I thought Florida's done a good enough job this year of running just enough to keep teams honest.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to point to this team and be like, hey, they can really run the ball. But they haven't made themselves completely one-dimensional yet. And I said that last year. Like, hey, Florida makes themselves one-dimensional. I haven't gotten to that point this year. They were certainly one-dimensional Saturday in Knoxville, and it didn't matter because that's a really bad Tennessee team. But that's probably the first time, and maybe I'm misremembering or forgetting one, but that's probably the first time I thought Florida made themselves one-dimensional because, one, the running game wasn't working, and then they just abandoned it and said, it's not working, throw it out. Cut the running half of the play sheet off, and let's start throwing the ball.
Perfect segue, Nick. There, look, Tennessee takes a 7-3 lead. So what does Mullen and company draw up? 6 plays, all passes. Florida marches 75 yards to take a 10-7 lead. Trask goes 5 of 6 for 64 yards. Then another drive when Florida's up 24-7. Mullen dialed it up again. 6 plays, 86 yards, all passes, all on first down. Converted. A first down every time, 12 yards, 13 yards, 14 yards, 14 yards, 21 yards, 12 yards on the touchdown drive to Copeland. Trask was able to make up for the run game, putting the team in some bad situations. He was able to get them out of it there. And there were a few times Florida ran back-to-back on 1st and 2nd down, setting up a 3rd and long. There was a 3rd and 6. The pass was completed for 23 yards. Another run. There was a 3rd and 10. Trask was for 22. Another run scenario, gaining very little and setting up a 3rd and 9 that wasn't complete. So there were a few times, like as I said, they ran back-to-back run plays on 1st and 2nd down. Florida converted two out of those 3 third downs in that situation. So Trask, did do well in that scenario, but when the mindset of this offense was pass heavy, he made it look easy.
Yeah, the average distance on 3rd down to go for Florida was 8. On Florida was converted 3 of 6 on 3rd and 9 or more. But why are you even in those situations? And you use that running game to just, your coaches say it all the time, use the running game just to stay ahead of the sticks, to stay ahead of the flag, and that means just to get 3 yards on first down, get 3-4 yards on first down, get 3-4 yards on second. Now you're in a situation at 3rd and 2, playbook's open. When you're 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. you know, like I said before, play sheet's cut in half. You know, you're only throwing the ball, and credit to Trask for doing that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because you should be able to run against LSU next week, and will we see Dan Mullen and the staff come out and do kind of what Alabama did against LSU and just throw the ball all over the field and you know, let Mac Jones, you know, get 400 yards in the first half against LSU? Do you try to let Kyle Trask throw all over the place, or do you try to, you know, establish the run against an LSU team that can't really do anything, just to kind of get some confidence going for your guys heading in? And I know a lot of people are saying LSU's a trap game and this and that. And I mean, like, it's not, because you already clinched the East. If you want to go to the SC, or if you want to go to more than the SEC championship, if you want to go to a national championship, then you have to win out. Maybe a trap game in that sense. But I think right now you're trying to win an SEC championship. LSU can't do anything to stop you from winning an SEC championship, whether you win that game or lose. So I don't think it's a trap game, but I think it is a game you need to start using as, you know, almost a get ready game for Alabama.
One more, Nick. Gators should have had another touchdown. I think the wheel routes,
Yeah,
and I loved your tweet there. Xavier Henderson is the only person that can stop a wheel route. So
yeah,
look,
hey, listen, if you're gonna call pick plays, Alabama would have an extra championship, because Clemson threw a nasty pick play in the end zone that won them a championship against Alabama a couple of years back. So that's just a play that doesn't get called consistently.
And
it happens all the time.
I guess I get why they called it, but I mean, I've seen 10 times worse than that. And Henderson did continue to run his route. You know, after that, it wasn't like he stopped and then chucked the guy and then, you know, tried to hold a block the whole time. So, man, I don't know. You know, maybe the orange and blue glasses in me say it shouldn't have been called.
It's funny because they probably call it because he runs into his defenders like that, you know, with his arms up. But that's also just a natural human instinct. Like, if you and I were running, you know, at the superior athletes that we are, if we were running at each other, we're probably going to, you know, brace for impact.
Right.
So that's tough. You know, if you don't do that.
Another thing, the play was so good. The play design was so good. It wasn't even needed, but
no,
it did happen.
he could have just like NBA flopped on the ground. It wouldn't have mattered. Yeah. So that one was tough, and Malik will want that one back, because, you know, other than that, it didn't do much on the day. And it's always nice when you kind of can just jog into the end zone.
Yeah. So, you know, that's kind of what we're saying. The inconsistent day. The offense really should have had more points. Mullen even said it after the game, and he pointed it out, that this was probably the game of the season where they left the most points on the field. And you got that feeling of it watching it as well. You know, Florida probably should have had 17 more points on the field.
I mean, for a coach who was in his 13th or 12th year as a head coach in the SEC, to get to his first SEC championship game as a head coach, he's been there with Florida as an offensive coordinator. He looked like his dog died yesterday. You were on the Zoom call. He looked not even like, he just looked like sad. like he was not happy. And we're just sitting there and, like, the first couple of questions were like, "Hey, coach, congratulations." Like, "Oh yeah." Yeah.
I think he's got the feeling of the fan base a little bit. I don't think he was happy with the performance.
No, he certainly didn't look happy with the performance. I think he might have had 2 Bud Light Limes and then was right back at it. And then that was his celebration, and then right back at it.
In the locker room or on the plane back?
maybe 2 in both. I don't know.
Did he cheer us your anthem?
I don't think so. And man, like, what is Florida doing giving up points? We'll get to the defense. What are you doing giving up points and drives at the end of this game?
Well, that's where we're going.
6 plays, 86 yards. What are you doing?
Yeah, that was gave up 1 drive when the game was competitive. So we'll give them some credit there. This is probably the biggest viewpoint of how you want to gauge where the team is, where the defense is, because it was garbage time, but I just did not like the effort that I saw out there on the late garbage time touchdowns by Tennessee. You know, gave up 1 drive when the game was competitive. After that touchdown drive, and before what you might consider garbage time, when Tennessee put up 2 late scores, when Florida was up 31-7, Tennessee had 7 drives down failure of downs, punt, half, 4 more straight punts for 67 yards after that. Florida only allowed 1 score from the Volunteers in the first 54 and a half minutes of the game. After the Gators were up 31-7, defense pretty much prevent mode, not allowing big plays. But Tennessee did put up 190 of their 334 yards in that scenario. Drives took up a lot of time, Nick, and yards as they were backed up on those drives. There was some good pressure at times. We'll get into that, Nick. Trey Dean played his best game of the season with more playing time. But this scenario in how Florida was able to control the game pretty early on with defense versus giving up some late drives, it's really how dependent on you as a fan and as an analyst of how you view this performance for how satisfied you'll be with the Gators walked out of that stadium with a victory. Yeah,
I don't think I'm satisfied with the way they've looked the last 3 weeks, really. And as much as people say, or as much as people in the program say, this season wasn't about beating Georgia, and that wasn't the only goal. The team that we saw in Jacksonville is not the team we've seen the last 3 weeks. And listen, it's human nature. It's natural just to you got that monkey off your back, and it's okay. Well, we've worked so hard. Like now we've got Vandy, and you take a week off, but then that should be your wake up call. And then that should have been like, okay, that's not who we are, who we want to be. Turn around next week against a bad Kentucky team. Don't do it. Okay, well, it's Tennessee. It's a rival. Let's go up there and score 50 and win 50-0. 31-19 is not a bad win, but we've already talked about the offensive stuff. I mean, listen, like you just said, after the half, 1, 2, 3, 4 straight punts, but then the 2 touchdowns at the end it just leaves like a bad taste in your mouth. Like this could have been, a huge blowout, and you're left with a 31-19 win, which is fine, but not what anyone expected. And I think it's just not meeting the expectations is kind of where we've been left the last 3 weeks.
Yep. Like I said, there are so many viewpoints of how to view this performance, and part of it is, Eric Gray for Tennessee, 64 total yards and averaging 8.2 yards a touch at halftime. Buckled down a bit on him. He ended the game 93 yards, averaging 5.3 yards a touch. Gators led some superlatives here. Nick, Gators led the SEC in sacks coming in today, tied with Georgia, and produced 6 more sacks versus Tennessee. Miller, Dean, Carter, Burney, Bogle, Human-Milan, all with a sack. 8 tackles for loss on the day for the Gators. And all depending on how you choose to choose to view the fourth quarter. Florida held a 351 to 173 yard edge through 3 quarters. The Vols were 3 of 11 on third down and averaged 3.5 yards per play before the fourth quarter there. Tennessee gained 161 yards in the fourth quarter, averaging 6 yards a play. So little prevent defense, getting some other guys some experience, but I mean, Nick, the front could not get off blocks. They couldn't tackle. There, the 1 touchdown for Tennessee, there were I think 4 or 5 broken tackles there from the running back. But here's my thing, Nick: more disappointing than giving up garbage yards and effort that I saw. You were playing a true freshman quarterback who had a freshman center. Then you played a backup quarterback. You forced no turnovers in those scenarios. When Bailey had 2 picks on the season in very little playing time there for Tennessee. So in my look, Florida didn't necessarily need to bring a whole lot or manufacture a whole lot of pressure by bringing the blitz, because early on in the game, the defensive front was getting back there. They settled down. They settled down a bit, and you saw some more pressure. But I think if you would have blitzed a bit more, bringing pressure up the middle, you probably would have got some more turnovers there. But I think just in who you were playing and the situation Tennessee was in, I thought you probably could have forced a couple turnovers there.
Yeah, driving into the stadium, they were talking about. I think it was the Tennessee guys that do the game call. We're saying, Todd Grantham's not going to blitz. He's going to, do this. I'm like, you crazy? Todd Grantham will blitz, anyone, everyone. So I thought, coming into the game, we'd see more blitzing. Like you said, you didn't really need to in the beginning. But then there at the end, maybe just start dialing some of that stuff up. You don't need to. And we just hear it
It's
a
a
lot
mindset
from
thing.
yeah, just to wake the guys up.
Yeah.
If you're in base and say these games aren't really competitive, these guys stink. Like I'm not going to give full effort and it'll be fine. You get a blitz called for you, your eyes perk up. You're like, ooh, here we go. We're good now. Now I'm awake. It's just a change in the play calling. I think they get into at least a lot of times this year, they play and to take Dan Mullen's words, we're playing the game as much as we're playing the opponent. We're playing the situation. We're playing the clock. And it's just like, just go full throttle for 60 minutes. You stress like strain and working and relentless effort. Just like do that for 60 minutes and see what happens at the end of the game. Instead of being like, okay, we're up 18 points in the third quarter. Let's have a nice long drive here. We get 7. Now we're up, and then we'll just sit on it. And it's just like, oh, I think that's where we're
right. And there's plenty of time to look at Florida, Alabama, but I want to look at it overall. And just that point that you're making, can you just flip the switch to turn it back on? And that's where my worry comes from. If you are playing the game, if you are trying to run the clock out, if you are trying to make the opposing offense drive 80 yards and make them take 6 minutes to do it just because you'll know clock time will run out and you'll win the game, okay. But as I said, blitz and all that stuff just for the mindset of being aggressive. Because if you don't, in the same way on offense, can you just flip the switch to turn it all back on?
Yeah, I don't think so. And listen, there's going to be a point. Florida. When was the last time Florida was down? Were they ever down in Jacksonville?
Yeah, remember 14-0 Georgia.
Yeah, no, that's right. Just kidding. Yeah, that was a quick 14, right?
And then they were down 10-3 or 7-3 to Tennessee.
I'm fried from travel. You're going to be down against Alabama,
I know what you mean. Like down to the point of where the game was in doubt.
Yeah, you're going to be down to the point where the game is in doubt, and can you flip on that aggression? Like you haven't had to really play with a sustained aggression against your last 3 opponents. You're not going to have to against LSU. All week, you're going to hear Dan Mullen say, "We're playing the defending national champions." False. They wear the same jerseys. That is not the same team. There's
no such thing as a defending national champion.
No.
You are a different team every year. It's not boxing. You're not the same person.
No, this is like Space Jam when the Monstars lost and they all shrunk down into the uniforms.
LSU. I saw the stat for only 4 players played last year.
Left. Yeah.
4 players played last year in the national championship game.
It's just Coach O and 4 guys, and that'd be fine if it was a basketball team coming back, but it's football. I mean, you need a lot more than that. Yeah, this is a shell of the LSU ran up a nice, big, hefty tab. They had a beautiful 2019 season. They had steak. They had all the fixings. They had all the appetizers, all the sides. And then somebody came. They're like, hey, man, here's that bill for 2019. And each week they're like, all right, well, let's chip off a little bit of that bill, get hit in the face. And now Florida gets its chance to bring the bill to LSU's table this week. But don't listen to Dan when he says, we're playing the defending national championship. They're a really good football team. They're not.
Yeah, there might be some hope there the players will be up for this game because Kyrie Campbell did already tweet. I think it was about an hour or so ago. He retweeted the video of LSU fans doing the Gator Chomp leaving LSU Stadium last year. And he goes, oh, we didn't forget. So at least the day after Tennessee and 6 days before you play LSU, if you want to take what you see on social media with any grain of salt, that the players seem to be up for the game in some fashion there. So seeing that.
Would you be in favor of the SEC going the ACC route and just canceling this week for Alabama and for Florida? You get a week to rest and you're healthy and you're energized for next week. It's already clinched.
Yeah, but if Florida had played better in Jacksonville the last 2 years with that bye week, I'd say yes. But I haven't seen much to where Florida's taking advantage of a bye week under Dan Mullen to say that they can go out there and figure something out. I'd rather them try and figure it out versus LSU than trying to figure it out during the bye week. But I also think it on the other side of that, it could help the defense. That bye week that you didn't get in the middle of the season when you wanted a little bit of experimentation with the defense, if you don't play LSU Saturday, you might get a chance to do that if the SEC decided to do that. So I go back and forth. I probably lean playing the game though, because I think if Florida had put up 60 points the last couple of weeks and you saw the offense in sync and everything's looking good, then I'd say, okay, I can handle the bye week. But I still think with the struggles that I see out there, I'd rather try and figure it out during a game than during the bye week.
Yeah, I say play it, and for both reasons. For the same reason you said, because we've seen a couple of struggles. But for me, if Florida had scored 180 points the last 3 weeks, don't put that offense on the shelf. Don't let them get any dust. You just put some oil into that thing, throw it out there on Saturday. We'll oil it back up and wash the car after the game on Sunday. Don't worry about it. But for me, I think it's listen, for everything that these guys have gone through, and just with COVID and having this entire season is so weird, and for the seniors, not this is not what they planned on going out as, not playing in front of any fans. We're going to have a senior day on Saturday. That's another thing, is that Florida, if they were to cancel it now, Florida wouldn't have had any kind of senior day. I don't know what they're going to be able to do on Saturday for senior day, but for me, it's just an opportunity for them to go out, play a team that, I think for them, we're older. We think of Tennessee and Georgia as rivals. If you get a little bit older than us, people will start saying Auburn. I think for the guys on the team, if you're talking about in terms of competitiveness and the way the game's been going, there's probably a bunch of guys in the locker room that'll say LSU is our biggest rival.
Yep.
And fans might not want to hear that, but in terms of where the rivalry has gone, especially since Hurricane Matthew, I think there's a lot of guys, like you said, Kyrie, that want to play this game. And then you just got to hope to get out without any injuries. I'll just hit some wood. Don't blame me if anything happens. I heard the words like coming into my brain, and as they came out, like, no, don't say that.
And another thing, kind of extending your point there, I want to see one more game with Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
And Kadarius Toney together. They are fun to watch. It is a fun offense to watch. Part of watching sports, part of being a fan is having fun watching your team. Mm-hmm. You'll get one more chance Saturday. You'll get one more chance when Florida comes out of that tunnel playing LSU. So that's another thing. I do want to see this team play again. Yeah,
no, I like that. I like that. Don't rob. I went to taking the don't rob the players of another opportunity to play. Kadarius Toney, Kyle Trask, Trayvon Grimes, Kyle Pitts. These guys, despite Kyle Pitts saying before Georgia, he's like, this isn't necessarily my last Florida Georgia game. Okay, buddy. This is
nobody's gonna blame you, buddy, for what they're going to
No. They've got very limited opportunities. And listen, if they weren't to play LSU, then you have maybe only 2 more opportunities as a player to put that helmet on, to put that jersey on. And you've already had games ripped out of this season. So for me, if I'm a player, I want to play every game possible. And if you want to add a game on to the end of the schedule and after a bowl game, sure, give me another game.
All right, Nick, let's get into some tweets here. And these tweets are kind of going to hit all over the place. There we go. I was just waiting for this. Under the lights in the swamp. There we go, Nick. Night game. 7 o'clock.
I love my night games.
There we go. 7 o'clock, ESPN, Florida, and LSU on Saturday. So I figured it would come out while we were here on the podcast. Repeat one more time. Game versus LSU. So actually, the conversation we just had, so it fits. They are going to play. And 7 o'clock at night on ESPN. That is Florida and LSU. So let's get into. They pulled up Twitter at the right moment. There, that couldn't work out any better. So, like I said, these tweets are going to hit all over the place. Kind of some are wide scope, some are just looking at the game versus Tennessee here. Alec Bennett here with a good perspective. He goes, 2 weeks before the Georgia game, watching the whole timeline was freaking out watching Georgia versus Bama because we didn't stand a chance. Florida blows out Georgia, just a couple of weeks later. So let things play out. Let things play out. Enjoy the ride. Jeremy J. White, 3175 says Florida needs to show it can play a complete football game. So many mistakes leaving points on the field. Lack of urgency on defensive side of the ball. LSU final tune-up game. They need to be ready to play 4 quarters on both sides of the ball. Nick, I'll raise that question to you. If Florida looks like they have the past 3 weeks, does it dampen your expectation for Atlanta? But compare that to a very Bama-like performance versus LSU that we saw on Saturday night. If Florida goes out there and does that, do you feel better, or do you really just kind of feel the same no matter what Florida does versus LSU?
I just don't think Florida will look like that against LSU. Like there was more than just Alabama being very good that went into that. Like Nick Saban somehow got into his players' heads that like this is a revenge game and like we've been disrespected and they disrespected us. Like, no, you lost a football game, like one of 12 football games you've lost in 15 years. Like, yeah, no, it's okay. You're going to lose football games eventually. So I think there was some revenge going on. Like Florida, yes, you lost to LSU last year, really tight game, close game, but you weren't going to go to a national championship. LSU, Alabama had national championship aspirations before losing to LSU. So they were taking out some deep-seated demons. And I think you had guys like Najee Harris and Devonta Smith come back to school to play in that game and to get another chance at a national championship. So I think that played into it more. But we've already seen Florida not handle Kentucky the way that Alabama handled Kentucky. I don't expect Florida to handle LSU the way Alabama did. Alabama's they're mean. They're big. They're nasty. They're mean. I don't think Florida's as good as Alabama is on defense or on the offensive line, and I won't predict Florida to win that game. But I do trust Dan Mullen. I don't think Florida's going to get run out of Atlanta. I don't think they're going to get blown out. I trust this coaching staff to have a good game plan. And I think they'll keep it close. And listen, with the offense Florida has, this is, like I said, this is going to be the least Florida-Alabama game we've ever seen in the series history. This is going to be, over-under should be 78, around there, somewhere around there, and I take the over. You could get into a situation where the last team of the ball wins, and I'm just not going to count. You can't count Florida's offense out. If the defense can keep Florida close, this offense can score on anyone, Alabama included.
Absolutely. C3 Colby, my good friend here, says live by a few codes in college football. Chief among those, play your best players. Even though we're on track to be 9-1 and won the East, for me, this sours things. There are 4 to 5 players who continue to play that have no business playing on this type of Florida team. So Nick definitely goes into your question of when you asked Dan Mullen about the right side of the offensive line there. A lot of people kind of throw that towards the secondary as well. We've seen that. I guess I mentioned his name. Good showing for Trey Dean yesterday. Gets his chance with Sean Davis going down on late in the week, Wednesday, Thursday in practice. Rashard Torrance goes down, I think 3 plays into the game. Trey Dean comes in and tackling machine versus the Volunteers.
More Trey Dean, please. I thought we'd see more of them. It's just crazy. We talked about it last week. There's like the rotation hasn't been there. And last year at safety, you'd see, minimum 4 guys playing a game, and unfortunately, you didn't have enough help. Enough guys healthy this week. But I think Trey Dean can play, and maybe he's in the doghouse some. It's Dan Mullen even said to us, it's probably not fair to him to call him our third string safety, but he is. And he doesn't, and he plays. His snaps reflect him being a third team safety.
Yep, a couple of tweets here, Nick, that kind of go hand in hand. Irrigator 19 says, this confounds me. Tennessee aside, Florida still tackles poorly. DBs look confused. Run game inconsistent. After 8 games, it's who we are. And the Gators have won the East. My brain melts a little more every week. Go Gators, SEC East champ. So looking at it from both perspectives there. And Cam the Man says the defense and the guy calling the defense looks like they lack pride. Game is in hand, yes, but you still play the last 10 minutes like you don't care if the other team scores. Have some pride. Play the last 5 minutes like the game is tied for once. So kind of going back to our point of kind of maybe playing with some urgency there, just to kind of, for me, just to kind of keep the aggressive mindset.
Well, Cam went a little farther than us. We didn't call Todd prideless, but I can't disagree with what he says there. I would probably question Dan Mullen. If Dan was like, no, we care if we don't want them to score in that last minute, I'd be like, sure doesn't look like it. Sure doesn't look like you care.
Yeah, I mean, perception is reality sometimes. That's the easy way to get out of that and explain it. So Jason A. Kraft says the most uninspired game I've seen in a while. If this is the team we take to Atlanta, we'll be throttled before halftime. I put this performance squarely on the coaches. I've never been more frustrated after a win. Florida once won an SEC East 9-6 over Vanderbilt with an Austin Harden field goal. So I think I felt a little bit more frustrated with that one than I did this one here.
That was 14. That was my first trip to Knoxville.
15,
wasn't it? No, 14.
I meant when beat Vanderbilt.
Oh, beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt. I was thinking of the 10-9 game in Knoxville. That was the Will Musch champ. That was the Will Musch champ.
All these people.
Happy to see all these unhappy Tennessee fans leaving.
Yeah. So, and then De Niro Gator says, after 7 years of Muschamp and McElwain, it's very easy to me to enjoy it. Mullen has a better record than Urban and Spurrier at this point of their careers. Perry Mason says, I agree. We were ahead of schedule with opportunity to play for an SEC championship. That's all I wanted was a chance. Go Gators. And the last one here, good perspective from the cranky fan, says the defense over the past month is not the same defense we saw versus Ole Miss and A&M. And I really like this part here, Nick. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. As I said, Florida didn't play Alabama yesterday. Florida didn't play Alabama last week. Still got a game to play with those guys. You can say right now it may not be good enough, but things happen. You still got a game to play. Yeah,
they don't play the game on paper. On paper, I'm sitting here. I started looking at Alabama after Jacksonville. So I've been looking at Alabama for a while.
Everybody has. And
Florida might have. Maybe they come out. Maybe they come out in 2 weeks with the best game plan, and we're like, oh, this is why they barely won, or we're so ho-hum the last 3 weeks. They didn't even watch film on Vanderbilt, Kentucky, or Tennessee. They've only been watching Alabama's game film, and that's it.
Yeah, I've had some radio hits just within the last week, kind of saying, "Look, that could be something like that. Could be the case here."
I'm waiting for Kyrie. I'm waiting for Florida to beat Alabama, and Kyrie Campbell goes, "Yeah, we've been watching Alabama film for a month now." And I'm like, "I knew it."
Yeah, like I have, you have, fans have, we have. Everybody looked forward to Florida Alabama as soon as the clock went final in Jacksonville. Okay, mm-hmm. Alabama's next. You can't fault the players if they did the same thing. I know it's to say, "Oh, they're playing the game; they can't do that." Well, everybody else is.
If they beat Alabama, then we don't fault them. If you lose to Alabama, then you've been preparing for a month to lose. What are you doing?
Yeah. So, last point here. What are the reasons for it? I think that's kind of what I wanted to wrap this episode up with. What is the reason for the inconsistent performance at times, the lackluster performance at times? Is it working on things and tinkering? Not as focused after beating Georgia? Is the opposition figuring out how to defend Florida better? I think all those things can be true at the same time. Yeah. We don't really know the answer. It's just a lot of guessing at this point. You can hope Florida's working on things and they're tinkering and they're not as focused, but I keep going back to, if that is the case, it's not always easy just to flip the switch back the other way. It doesn't work that way.
It's hard. It's hard. I mean, you think about it, since June, these guys have been going and practicing. And in the beginning, practicing, not knowing if they're going to be able to play games. We're a long way away from June right now. It's been a really long season, and it's just been a grind. And I think human nature, if you get a moment in a game or a drive or an entire quarter in a game where you can be like, okay, I can let off the gas a little bit right now, maybe that's it. And I don't think it's so much as tinkering with some stuff. Sure, you're going to be doing that on a week-to-week basis. I just think it's not focusing in and not really, as they say, straining for, that full 60 minutes. And you're seeing that, play out.
Yep. So one more game versus LSU. Remember, night game in a swamp on Saturday for the final regular season game of this weird 2020 football season that Florida will be SEC East champs of. Nick, man, what you got coming up? I'm assuming you start at Gator Territory. Has your first article come out there yet, or is it on the way?
No, I don't have to write anything. Well, I'm going to write something today that'll go up, tomorrow. But
okay,
not writing anything today. This is the first Sunday, after a game in like 8 years. I'm not writing anything. Got all my stories done, and my first thing I think will be tomorrow covering Dan Mullen.
All right, there we go.
Dan Mullen won.
Yeah, there we go. Look at it for Nick De La Torre at Gators Territory now. So don't forget that there. Nick, thanks for hopping on, coming back from Knoxville, getting on here on Gators Breakdown. You can find Nick at De La Torre on Twitter and at Gators Territory. I'm the host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. Got a shout out to Graham too. Graham's covering basketball today, so that's why he did not. I should have announced that at the beginning of the episode.
We're just more man than Dan Mullen. We fired Graham. He won't fire Todd, so we fired Graham. That's what it is.
Graham Hall covering the Gators basketball game right now, so he'll be back hopefully with us next week. So for Nick, I'm David, host of Gators Breakdown. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.